Welcome to today's Explainer. We communicate every single day, right? Mostly without even a second thought. But right beneath our casual chats and our formal emails lies a really complex, entirely hidden structure. So today, we're demystifying the mechanics of human communication. We're going to uncover exactly how a thought leaves your brain and successfully, or let's be real, unsuccessfully, enters someone else's.
Because we've all been there. You say one thing and the other person hears something completely different. It's wildly frustrating. And this brings us to a huge universal pain point and really the central question of our explainer. Why is communication so difficult even when we speak the exact same language? We often treat conversation like it's just this spontaneous, free-for-all exchange of words, but it's actually a highly structured, observable process. And once we start looking at it as a system, well, we can finally understand exactly why it breaks down.
So here is our game plan. 1. The anatomy of a message. 2. Breaking down communication barriers. 3. Written versus oral communication. And finally, 4. The hidden rules of conversation. Let's dive in.
Part 1. Anatomy of a message. The journey from mind to mind.
To really grasp how a thought travels from my mind into yours, we have to look at the dynamic feedback loop of communication. We don't just throw words out into a void. The whole process starts with a sender, filters through several layers to the receiver, and then actually loops right back around. Oh, and notice that thing called noise attacking the channel? We are absolutely going to deal with that villain in just a few minutes.
Here's how the journey plays out. First up, the sender forms an idea or a feeling they want to share. But to share it, they've got to encode that message into a recognizable system, like language or maybe gestures. Then, the message travels via a channel. This could be a spoken sound wave bouncing across a room, a handwritten letter, or just a quick email. Finally, the receiver catches that message and decodes it to actually extract the meaning.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. We need to zero in on these two terms, encoding and decoding. Encoding is simply putting your thoughts into a code. Easy enough. But decoding, that is where things get really fascinating. See, decoding is not a passive activity. The receiver doesn't just sit there and absorb words like a sponge. They are actively searching for meaning. They have to use their background knowledge, their specific relationship with the speaker, and the physical context just to make sense of the code.
Let me give you an example. Picture hearing the sentence, "Mr. Gupta is not coming." The literal meaning is incredibly simple, but let's add some context. Imagine the speaker is the managing director of a company, they're talking to their secretary, and Mr. Gupta is a crucial consultant who was supposed to fly in for a massive meeting. Suddenly, that simple sentence isn't just a basic fact anymore, it's a blaring warning siren. The secretary instantly decodes this to mean, the meeting is a bust, tell the other officials, cancel his hotel, cancel the airport pickup. The meaning is entirely created by the context.
All right, part 2. Breaking down communication barriers. Why messages fail. So, if decoding takes that much active mental gymnastics, it's really no wonder things go wrong so often. In communication theory, the ultimate adversary to clarity is called noise. And we're not just talking about a loud siren outside your window or a barking dog. Noise is defined as absolutely anything that impedes communication and prevents the message from arriving 100% complete. It exists out there in the physical world, sure, but it also exists psychologically, right inside our own heads.
This noise takes a few common forms. First, there's the code itself, literally just not sharing the same language. Then there's vocabulary. If someone drops a bunch of dense stock market jargon, a total beginner is going to be completely lost. Third is background knowledge. If I casually mention a Victorian-style mansion and you've never seen English architecture, the concept just fails. Then we have affective factors, and honestly, these are huge. Anxiety, a lack of mutual trust, personal rivalries, or even just zoning out will severely impede understanding. And finally, the physical environment, actual distance or literal noise. So simply sharing a dictionary is rarely enough to guarantee you'll be understood.
Which brings us to part 3. Written versus oral communication. Choosing your medium.
To jump over these barriers, we have to choose our mode of communication super strategically. Think about a speaker standing at a podium. They have this whole toolkit: sounds, voice quality, facial expressions, and immediate face-to-face feedback from the crowd. Now compare that to a writer. A writer relies entirely on symbols on a page for an absent reader who might be sitting miles away or even reading it years in the future. They both have their superpowers. Oral communication is fantastic because it's completely spontaneous and offers instant feedback. If your listener looks confused, you can just instantly adapt, rephrase, and clear up the doubt right on the spot. It's fast and economical. Written communication, on the flip side, gives you the luxury of time. You can reflect, you can edit, and you can make sure your message is completely precise. Plus, it creates a permanent record, ensuring uniform transmission of information without the whole telephone game risk of someone altering it. But yeah, it totally lacks that immediate feedback loop. Choosing the right medium really just depends on the urgency, the complexity, and the required permanence of whatever it is you're trying to say.
Okay, our final section, Part 4, the hidden rules of conversation, our unwritten social contracts.
Now, you might think casual conversation is totally unstructured, just going wherever the wind blows. But it actually relies on a deep, unwritten social contract. Think about this incredibly familiar exchange. Person A says, "How are you?" And person B says, "Fine, thank you." It literally happens millions of times a day. But why? Because we are deeply programmed to follow specific interactional structures.
In the linguistics world, this is known as an adjacency pair. Adjacency pairs are the basic structural building blocks of conversation. When someone produces the first part of a pair, it actually prescribes the exact type of talking the next person is allowed to do. A greeting demands a greeting in return. A question demands an answer. A compliment generally demands an acceptance. These invisible pairs quietly and efficiently dictate how we take turns, keeping the social flow moving smoothly, so we aren't just constantly talking over each other.
But to make this whole turn-taking dance actually function, we rely on the philosopher H.P. Grice's 4 maxims of cooperative behavior. First is the maxim of quantity. Basically, make your contribution exactly as informative as required. No more, no less. Next is quality. Only say what is true. Then relation, keep it relevant. And finally, manner. Avoid ambiguity and be orderly. The wild thing is, we just blindly assume everyone we talk to is following these exact rules. Let's see the maxim of relation in action. Person A says, "It is very hot in here." Person B responds, "I'll open the window." Now, on a purely literal level, B didn't even address A's statement about the temperature. But because A assumes B is cooperating and being relevant, A easily infers the unspoken logic. Opening the window lets in cool air, which solves the problem of it being hot. The conversation works flawlessly, all because of that shared, unspoken expectation.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, it brings us to a final, really fascinating thought. If we rely on these maxims for clear communication, think about what happens when we manipulate them. If you ask a friend how a meal was, and they just shrug and say, "Well, there was plenty of it," they're intentionally breaking the rules of conversation to suggest the food was terrible without explicitly saying so. It's brilliant. So, I challenge you, analyze your next conversation. Look for the encoding, spot those adjacency pairs, and catch those maxims at play. You'll quickly realize that human communication isn't just a boring daily habit. It's a highly skilled, completely hidden art form that you are practicing